It's really great to be back here with good friends. Your support has always means so much to me, and I really appreciate that warm welcome. And I hear you're going to have a fabulous convention. I hear the crowd is going to be the largest ever, so congratulations. I'd like to talk to you for just a minute about what happened 2 nights ago. 2 nights ago, President Barack Obama delivered his State of the Union address. In that speech, the president displayed a level of public deception that simply cannot be ignored. Before we get to that, I'd like for you to go back with me right now about 2 months, days after tragedy struck Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut. The president held a press conference at the White House. We're going to have to look at schools, the president said, adding later that Sandy Hook should be a wake-up call for all of us to say that if we are not getting right the need to keep our children safe, then nothing else matters. That's a direct quote from the president. Nothing else matters. The NRA agreed about making our schools safer for our children. A few days after the president's press conference, we announced the NRA's School Shield Safety Program to put trained, qualified, armed police or security officers in every single school in the country. When we did that, the media, they scoffed at our proposal. The president said he was skeptical. But all across this country, Americans agreed with the NRA that nothing else mattered more than the safety of our school children. Already, right now in this country, as we sit here this afternoon, more than 23,000 schools have armed guards. In all 50 states, government officials, local authorities, and school districts are considering right now their own initiatives to protect schools with armed security. Because when it comes to keeping our kids safe at school, nothing else matters. That is, until the State of the Union address 2 days ago. That was the president's first State of the Union address of his second term. This was the address in which the president laid out his most ambitious agenda, focused on issues of greatest importance to him. In an hour-long speech, nowhere were the words school safety to be found. Just think about that. Less than 2 months after saying we had to look at our schools, the president made not one mention in his entire speech of the need to improve security for our school children. When nothing else matters to every parent in America, President Obama had nothing to say about school security. And nothing he proposed has anything to do with protecting one child in any school in this country. A year ago, I began to warn American gun owners all over this country that if reelected, President Obama would set about dismantling the Second Amendment to our Constitution of the United States. There would no more elections to worry about. The president would wait for the right political opportunity to exploit and launch the most aggressive campaign in history to destroy our Second Amendment rights. Bans on millions of commonly owned rifles, shotguns, and handguns. Bans on tens of millions of standard magazines. Bans on private transfers, even between family members. Import bans. A federal database to track firearms and their owners. In other words, the national registration of every single gun owner in this country. It was only a few weeks ago when they were marketing their anti-gun agenda as a way of protecting school children from harm. That charade ended at the State of the Union when the president himself exposed their fraudulent intentions. It's not about keeping kids safe at school. That wasn't even mentioned in the president's speech. They only care about their decades-long, decades-old gun control agenda. Ban every gun they can, tax every gun sold, and register every American gun owner. The president has taken the art of public deception and manipulation to a whole new level on this one. Consider just for a minute with me right now, this afternoon, his proposal for a so-called universal background check. At first glance, it sounds like a reasonable, good idea, but there's nothing universal about it at all. Think about it. Criminals won't be part of that universe. That's common sense. They'll steal their guns, or they'll get them and everything else they want on the black market. Even when prohibited people are flagged by the system right now, they're almost never stopped. In 2010, and just listen to these numbers, in 2010, out of 76,000 supposedly denied purchasers, out of 76,000, only 13 were successfully prosecuted under federal law for illegally attempting to buy a gun. That universal failure endangers us all. The mentally ill are also not part of their universe. For the last 20 years, under the National Instant Check System, when that was established, government has failed to include records of those judged mentally ill by a court of law. We're talking about people adjudicated mentally incompetent by a court of law. We've been fighting to get them in the system for 20 years. It still hasn't happened. If we can't even get those records into the system, how is the system ever going to work? Are we truly to believe that government will force medical professionals to add the records of mentally disturbed patients into the system? You know the answer to that. The people who will be checked if the president gets his way are the law-abiding, sane, decent, law-abiding American citizens. It's going to be our names, the names of good people, that will be put into this massive database, subject to federal registration and subject to abuse of your privacy. And none of it, from universal checks to universal gun bans, none of it does anything to keep our children safer in their schools. And the president knows it. That's why he didn't even mention it in his speech. But it's what we want. Every single one of you in this room, and people like you all throughout our great country. We care as parents. We care as law-abiding gun owners. We're the millions and millions of Americans who take responsibility for our own safety and protection of our children as a God-given right. We're proud to exercise that right, and we are not ashamed of it, and we deserve nothing less than the absolute respect and admiration as lawful American gun owners under the Constitution of the United States of America. And for our Second Amendment freedom, Mr. President, we will stand and fight throughout this country as Americans for our freedom. We promise you that. Every single one of us, from one end of the country to the other, we will stand and fight. We will not be duped by the hypocrisy in the White House or the Congress who would deny our right to semi-automatic technology and the magazines we need to defend ourselves and our families. Mr. President, the National Rifle Association of America is nearly now 5 million members strong and growing by tens of thousands every day. We will continue to support what will work to make our children and our families safer. And what you failed to even mention in your speech, fixing our broken mental health system throughout this country. And we will fight for swift and certain punishment of every criminal that touches a gun. And because millions of our children throughout this country remain today vulnerable and unprotected as ever, right now, this afternoon, I want to renew our call for armed police and security officers in every single school in America. And we're calling for that because when it comes to keeping our kids in this country safe, nothing else matters. Thank you very much. Have a good convention. It's an honor to be with you. Thank you very much.